It's good to see you and to be with all of you together today. It's yeah, it's humbling hearing how you introduced the school. When I started working here at SSE Riga 10 or even more years ago, I remember I was so surprised when to see that the admin is so small, because the reputation that the school has built, when you actually come here, it's a beautiful Art Nouveau building and kind of historic offices. You wouldn't expect kind of advanced modern education in a very old building, but but the environment is really pleasant, and it really surprised how few people can do a lot of work and make a great impact. But the story I wanted to share with you all today was kind of a very personal one. I think education in general, for each one of us, we all get very emotional about it. We all have a good story, and then we have some mostly bad experiences from our education system. I think when we, especially from the media and journalists who have worked and studied in Eastern Partnership countries, we are very good at memorizing things and regurgitating, but media business is so creative. I mean, the environment that we have to thrive and survive is full of pressures, full of unexpected turns. You need to be creative and free to experiment and explore. And those are kind of not the skills that we all come with usually from this part of the world. And having experienced the education in a Latvian system, post-Soviet system, having studied in a very kind of experimental international school in Hong Kong for 3 years, and then going to US. And it was interesting to see and compare the benefits, kind of the problems and the kind of mostly advantages from the other systems. And coming over here and actually seeing and experiencing the programs at SSE Riga was really kind of reminded me of the better experiences of education life. And education should be about making everyone feel comfortable, engaged, passionate. I think if you're learning something and you're feeling stressed out, you're feeling distracted, you're feeling disengaged or scared, you can't learn in such an environment. So it's really the format of whatever education program you choose or you are looking at, the format and is as important as the content. And but I think the first step in general would be to start off from looking at your needs. And the programs we have developed are all based on the needs of media professionals. So in education, media education, you can find academic programs, in Cambridge, there's a 2-year media management program in US. And what we noticed was that majority of these programs were academic, theory-based, and they were longer. And they didn't seem to match the needs of media professionals who were under time pressure, who can take 2 years off to go and study. And you needed kind of a quick, intensive program. And the other aspects were, you have to be able to really have it market-based, like case-based. It cannot be something just here. This is how business works, and that's not the best way of learning. So really, all the training programs are based on cases from actual media, actual issues, actual solutions, how they went about it, and the impact. So and also the purpose, of course, for anyone trying to pick a program, it's important to know why. What do you want to do with it afterwards? For us, we have programs, shorter programs that are really, 4 hours. But some events or activities are more aimed at inspiring people and connecting people, creating a social network. But then there are a couple of programs that are more intensive to really get, but for short periods of time, but very intensive programs where you can really get the actual skills that you need to run a media business. Yeah.
Thank you for that introduction. And I think you raised two very important points that we'll be coming back to several times today. One of them is the format. And of course, for those who have had the chance to experience the summer in Riga of coming and discussing with your colleagues until late into the night, media problems, that's really a unique experience. And I do encourage everyone to try to find some way to get involved. The other one is sort of it being very practical and case-based. I think this is a really interesting point that I would like to dive a little bit deeper into. Just a very quick question: would it make sense to tell a little bit more about the school beforehand, just to give people a sense? I have a presentation to share.
I think just keeping the conversation going. I mean, we have three priorities. So a block of activities are aimed at developing investigative reporting. The second priority is sustainable media business. So that includes a mini MBA program that lasts 4 weeks. It includes shorter paid courses and forums. But the third priority is really intertwined within all of them, which is networking and kind of linking people together, and different research programs as well, best practices. But yeah, I mean, Jakob, when we get feedback from participants, they say that this informal part of actually being away from their newsroom, being in a different country with other media managers, that they learn a lot from each other throughout those evenings and throughout those breaks. And another thing that, with the environment, that it really, every detail matters, like every detail, even person's emotional state. If we see that people are stressed out, we can't go on with the program. So we adjusted programs. Especially now with COVID, and already before COVID, we had to improve programs to include self-management practices, because we saw that people were so burnt out that they couldn't learn. They weren't able to plan long-term if you're constantly facing immediate threats. And those are the skills you can learn. So really, these are very kind of skill-based programs.
Absolutely. And just to add a little bit of context, one of the things, or sort of one of the areas in where SSE Riga specializes is in educating media managers from the sort of wider post-Soviet space. So we have a lot of people who are coming from extremely difficult circumstances, whether it's due to the general level of press freedom, or as we saw this year, revolutions, wars. This is something that happens. It's just, I imagine every program, somebody is saying like, look, I can't go now because we're having some kind of crisis in the country. So it's a very challenging environment. And I really like how you sort of phrased it, that look, you first need to take the people and you need to take them outside of their environment that they are, because otherwise they're not able to learn.
You need time to think about strategy and big things. Yeah, but usually people don't have time once you're working.
Yeah. I would even maybe venture a thought that although this is particularly challenging in sort of the broader post-Soviet space, I think there's something in general about media. One of the, I think it was during the discussion about AI, there was this point raised that, in media, you're constantly chasing deadlines. And as a journalist, there's no such thing as seeing, a picture 2 weeks down the road, let alone 2 years down the road. It's always, what is the next thing that is going to happen to me? What is the next story that we need to deliver? And so it's very difficult for people, especially on the editorial side, to really take a step back and actually take a look at the bigger picture of what is happening. Is that something that you've also sort of, you see a bit?
It is that. It's also, I think, the fact that media, like NGOs, are very mission driven. And you almost feel bad thinking about the funding side or the budget side, but that is important. And you need to pay people, you need to pay them well if you want them to stay with you and develop and be good at their jobs. But yeah, there are different aspects, but I think in any industry, anyone, it's kind of an internal feeling of this rush, or there are certain expectations, of course, from the outside. But people have different skills, but this kind of ability to step back and to realize that as a leader, it's very hard for any leader to step back and take the time to think about things. And the interesting thing is sometimes when you step back or even take a longer vacation, lead by example of how to take care of yourself, you actually see how the team suddenly has space to develop and show their potential and step in with their kind of, they can navigate out of their usual tasks. And so, yeah, I mean, for us as well, it's been a learning experience. We're growing so quickly and there's so many needs. It's been a challenge to learn how to delegate, a challenge to learn how to take care of yourself before, putting 100% of yourself into your work. And then once you're burnt out, your media suffers.
So yeah.
On that positive note. Sorry, on that positive note, it's doable. Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Yeah. I like this.
I would love to jump in here, if I may.
Please go ahead.
Can I?
I think we can open up the discussion. Yeah. If some, go ahead.
Yeah, I was actually a part of this knowledge-driven media community that you're talking about. I was a student at SSE Riga mini MBA program. And so building on what Jakub asked, what we experienced, I was also managing quite an, intense media back then, and also all did my group mates. And at some point, so we were, always like pulled back in this work routine all the time during the studies. So at some point we made a pact that we would stop each other from doing that, and would actually devote a day from 9 to whatever 6 when we had classes to just studying and thinking and the practicing the helicopter view that was introduced also during the studies. So but we also used each other a lot to have this support, right? So we were a community in itself, and we were a pretty tight group of people, very involved with each other and with each other projects, trying to help each other. How does that working in the COVID situation, when you have people studying online and you have a group like that studying online? They might not have this connection that we had, and how maybe you can support them to actually practice the helicopter view?
It's a challenge. Over the Christmas, just before Christmas, we were really kind of struggling to, when we asked what the needs of the media managers were, usually the first thing people would say, we need money. Then we need maybe some training, but money first. But at this time it was, don't forget about us, keep us involved. And then we decided to send Christmas packages to people and write personal notes to let them know that we think of them, that they're important to us, that we really respect the work that they do and the effort they put in. But it really, a lot of details, right? And now we've adapted several programs, making them shorter, because we realize there's no way we're going to keep people. We don't want to torture people to keep them a full day on Zoom for a whole week. So we've adjusted, made them shorter, made them more interactive and focused. But yes, this nothing can really replace this face-to-face interaction, and it's so valuable. I think this is the time when we're all realizing how that there's you can't evaluate it on monetary level, but this learning that happens from interaction and the support that you can provide, yeah, there's no way to measure it, but it's so precious just to meet people who have gone through similar experiences and share, and becoming a family. But basically the people who have gone through the program, they're connected for life. They have a support system for life. So that's the aim, but it is a challenge to do it in COVID times. Yeah, online drinks are not sufficient. Yeah.
And yeah, just to add, I think that it really is quite remarkable, the feeling and the bonding that people get from the non-COVID interactions. There's now, I mean, I think it's quite an impressive number. It's over 3,000 sort of participants, alumni of your program.
Yeah.
But what really strikes me is not so much even the numbers as the fact that you know, people continue to reach out, and you know, I have a classmate, we went to Riga together, and there's really a huge sense of community, which is very impressive.
Please. Yeah, we've been we were so excited to kind of every alumni from our program gets an SSE Riga hoodie and a cup. But then we've had funny incidents where our alumni suddenly are taking parts in protests and taking photos of themselves in SSE Riga sweaters. So we've had to, yeah, there was actually a case also in Russia where everything that was in English, including the SSE Riga certificate, was taken by the police. So we're, yeah, but yeah, those cups and those hoodies, they do remind of the place where we learned together and grew.
That's fantastic. And yeah, I think if you know, if anyone has questions or wants to jump in with a comment, I think that's, you know, please do. In the meantime, Sabine, I would just like to come back to one thing that you mentioned, which was I never thought about it before, but recently I've been listening to this an audiobook of the Netflix sort of business discussion, where they basically praise this idea that, you know, people should have, especially creative people, and our industry is very creative, should have, you know, opportunity to relax and to go to vacation. But unless the boss, unless the managers are role modeling this, people will not do it, and they will continue to push themselves. And so they even had a rule at Netflix that the management should take long vacations and talk to people about it. Like, come to meetings and tell them, like, I went to vacation and I did this, you know. Is that something that you think media can also pick up?
Oh my, I think that's something we all learned from our painful experiences. And that's why I wrote in the Telegram chat that, you know, the ideal education is when you learn from other people's mistakes, but usually the biggest lessons learned are based on our own painful experiences. But you know, if you look at the scientific kind of the consequences of even a burnout, you know, I'm not talking about post-traumatic syndrome or being arrested or detained, just burnout, just when you're passionate it's with something, right? It's hard to stop, but it goes at your own detriment, you know, if you forget the oxygen mask principle. And burnout is infectious. It affects the whole team. And we learned it from our own experience. We love the work that we do, but our family life suffered, our health suffered, and now we're dealing with the consequences. And yeah, I'm going on a holiday tomorrow. So I'm very excited.
That's fantastic.
I'm learning from, you know, we have to practice what we preach. So
okay, good. And so I imagine that once you're back, you'll be telling your whole team about your holiday and what you did.
Actually, the whole transition and learning from this painful experience started last year in February. Yeah, it's a big transition process to actually learn how to work sustainably, not just to manage an organization sustainably, but manage yourself sustainably. You know, you can't. the pressures are so many. If you just go with the flow without thinking or paying attention, you can easily be drawn into not sleeping at all. So it's just impossible. We can't survive without sleep. We can't survive. This constant stress is bad for our health. If we don't want to die at 40, we need to change the way we live and the way we work. And it actually makes it more productive and effective. When we come to work happy, when we come, we can inspire our team.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be yelled at work by their bosses, right?
You would think. Can I ask a question? So when I studied, and I think for the next group had the same program or kind of like the same, we didn't have a particular course about the HR and team management and how to implement these best practices. And believe me, I mean, as a person who worked in the media for 10 years, there's no such practices in the media. My first chief editor, I know he had never taken a vacation, like literally never. And everybody knew that. And everybody laughed, but also everybody was kind of afraid to take a vacation because of that, right? It was like, but he never sleeps and never rests. I was, a newsfeed editor. I would wake up at 6 to post first news, and he was already up checking them, and so is there, a plan to maybe introduce an HR management course in the next iterations of mini MBA for media managers and many, other
In the current mini MBA group, we have included HR aspect. There's leadership aspect, right? I remember Peter Zashev talking about mentioning many funny stories of bad leaders. But we actually had to created a whole kind of burnout recovery program, because the media managers coming from our big neighboring country were just if you're in the state of war, you can't be a good leader. You can't lead or if you're struggling, and a lot of the problems are actually solved when we kind of deal with our own personal. We can control how we feel. Yeah, we can't always control the things that are around us, but we can manage ourselves. But you need to know how, because most of us haven't been taught how to take care of our mental health or our emotional health. What's okay, what's not okay, how to support your team when they're going through difficulty. And so those are, we have included some snippets of it in the mini MBA course. Then we have a separate 7-day intensive self-management course called Pit Stop, kind of a retreat, but to help recover and regain focus. And now we're working with one of the donors to develop like a crisis management program that would include this management side as well as the self-management HR side. Yeah. But it can't, the positive thing is that it can be done if you know how to do it, and you don't have to, of course you can read 10, 12 books, but it's easier when you have somebody who has put together a program that in a very short time, you can basically get the necessary skills. Yeah. So.
That's that's actually incredibly helpful. Since we're, sharing the personal experiences, I remember after the revolution and then the war, I went to do an MBA, and about 6 months after everything had started, I started the courses, and only thinking back, I realized that it took me around 6 months before I started to even sort of take in new information. Like it was flying through and you could see it and you could react to it, but it takes a while before you can actually
internalize it.
Yeah.
It's very personal, it's crazy, but it's a bit like education or learning is don't want to sound too risque, but it's kind of like sex, the environment matters. It's very personal also. People learn differently. You can't learn in a war environment, right? I mean, the mood, the setting, the environment, it matters. Like the whole being. You can't just pull apart the body from the emotions or the way people feel or what they think about. So it has to, the intelligence, the mind has to be as much engaged as all the emotions when you're learning. And yeah.
No, I think that's actually quite a good metaphor, and I think certainly something that is going to, pique people's interest on Twitter, as I imagine it going out. But no,
it's good. Another, to go with the metaphor, it's better to discover earlier than later.
Definitely.
And then it makes your job a lot easier. Yeah, and it's better to learn every day.
Yeah. Oh, that's okay. On that fantastic analogy, I'm going to suggest we take a slight pause and come back to this discussion because I think it's a really important one.